Good afternoon, everybody, from sunny Nicaragua. This is Michael Hunyets. I would like to introduce you to Gil Fallon, founder of Grandview Estates, Costa Rica. Gil Fallon is an author, builder, developer, and entrepreneur. And he will be talking about, let me just find you here. You don't have to follow the herd. That's a very interesting subject. Please tell all about us. And I'm just reminding everybody that everything is recorded and you can get all the 3 days recording. Welcome.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Following the herd. And it's not about this COVID stuff right now. We hear a lot about that, but this is actually came into my focus when I first got to Costa Rica. I moved there in 2002, and this was before the boom. So my original intent was to go to Honduras. I wanted to open up a scuba shop. And a friend of mine at work said, you don't want to go to Honduras. They got too many hurricanes there. You want to go check out Costa Rica. Now, as a basic hillbilly from Pennsylvania, I don't even know if I could have found Costa Rica on the map at that point. So, I started doing a little investigating, and I think the main reason was there's no hurricanes. So I said, that really sounds good because Roatan really gets hammered by hurricanes. And I thought, well, let me just go check out Costa Rica and see what it's about. And like I said, this was before the boom and everybody going there. So 2002, I went, and I really fell in love with the backwardness of it, to be honest with you. Like I said, I'm kind of a hillbilly anyway. So not having the cell phones back then and just everything kind of backwards didn't put me off. I know it does a lot of people, but it didn't me. So I just decided, hey, I'm gonna try this. If it doesn't work out, I can always do something else, right? So in 2002, I moved, and first I moved into San Jose. Just I met a girl and we got married, and I'm living in San Jose. And I started looking around. I said, I really would like to check out my scuba business. Where should I go? So checking out the Pacific at that time. Like I said, this was before any gringos were really moving there, and prices were relatively inexpensive, actually. And so I ended up going over there to the Pacific side, and then all of a sudden, the boom started. It's about 2004. It really started, and everybody flocked to the Pacific side. And one of the main reasons was the Liberia airport opened up. And that was real. Delta was the first airline. So people started flying in, and the boom was on. And, I'd watched a piece of property that I was looking at. Actually, it was a 3-bedroom on the beach sort of house, nothing fancy, but it was very close to the beach. And it was like $90,000 at the time. This is about 2003. And I was still looking at it, wondering. And next thing you know, the price of that tripled. I says, my goodness. That's crazy. So the boom was on in full force. And as things progressed, 2004, 2005, people were borrowing money in the United States. They're getting home equity loans, they're getting loans, and they're buying places in Costa Rica. And the prices were just astronomical by this point. And, being there before, and just watching the house go from $90,000 up to like it was $375 for the same exact house a couple of years later. I thought that was nuts. And everything, in Costa Rica, I could go on for 5 days with everything Costa Rican, but in Costa Rica, everything's $1 million. So people are spending $1 million, not even thinking about it. And I just didn't get it because I had seen what happened. I knew what the real value was. And we ran into the same thing in the States in 2008, right? You're seeing what the value was. And then, something that goes up 20, 30, 50% a year is not right. It's not sustainable. So that's really what I mean. Everybody flocked to the Pacific side, paying whatever people were asking. Meanwhile, the rest of Costa Rica is there. And that wasn't the case everywhere. I mean, if you look around and you're careful where you go, there was still deals to be had. Now, some people like it more remote than others. And this craziness really started with the beach areas. So that's what got very popular. So I just saw that at the beginning. And as we moved through life in Costa Rica, and I decided to take advantage of this, is, scuba shops are great, but they're not you don't get rich, and you're really lucky just to stay in business. And I thought, why not take advantage of this boom in real estate? Maybe I'll have a better opportunity. So long story short, I found a partner, and we ended up going to the Caribbean side. And to this day, it's still opposite of, where everybody's going. So let me just describe some of the differences. I mean, I also understand you want what you want sometimes. So if you want what you want and you want to spend the money, I get that. I really do. But when you're trying to be careful and you're looking around for your best options, whether it's as a living situation or an investment situation, there's options in Costa Rica. And one of the things about the Caribbean side that I like to tell people is that it's still both an investment and a living situation. Whereas the Pacific side and the pricing that they get really is not an investment situation much anymore. To think that you're going to buy something and resell it and make a profit anytime soon is not realistic. So that's one of the reasons I suggest getting away from the crowd, doing some, on the ground, boots on the ground work, and check out the other parts of Costa Rica that just don't get the press. And to this day, they don't. There's so many misconceptions about the Caribbean, which is in a way okay, because we don't want it to be an overcrowded, over expensive gringo haven. We like the mix of Ticos, the Costa Ricans and the Americans, and just having an average lifestyle, not just based towards high price stuff just because you're a gringo, which is really what I find to this day. The Pacific side, everything in these towns that are, 90% gringos, everything's 3 or 4 times as much. Now, like I said, if the money isn't a problem for you, it's not important. I get that. Go for it if you like it. But to me, the lifestyle isn't as good either if you're all crowded in there. I mean, to buy a 1/4 acre lot as opposed to an 1.5 acres for the same amount, I don't know. I just always liked a little bit more elbow room. But let me show you. I put up a couple of, if I can figure this out, I'm going to go through a few things. Okay, number one, and this really didn't make sense. And I hope, Michael, if this is coming through okay or not, let me know if there's a problem.
We're not seeing any image. Are you sharing one of the images first? There we go.
There we go. Okay, this is a weather map. Okay. The original boom, the herd and the stampede was all over here, Playas del Coco, and this is the northwest Guanacaste province. So with Liberia, here's the airport in Liberia, everybody flocked over here. And I can tell you, not only was the prices crazy, it's so hot there. It's just really, it's a 6-month wet and 6-month dry period there. And during the 6-month dry period, it's really dry and really hot. I mean, the dryness. So here's all the gringos flock over there. And back then, now this is 2004, Costa Rica didn't even know what was going on. I mean, people were building stuff with no permits, tearing roads up, doing everything. Nobody was paying attention. Meanwhile, there's no water. Okay.
Phil, could you do me a favor and
Yes, sir.
just double click on the map to make it a little bit bigger?
Double click on the map.
What we're seeing is the folder on your screen rather than the full image.
Okay, is that any better?
Let's see here. I'm going to stop sharing your video, and then we'll do it one more time where it's just the entire screen showing. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Let's click the share screen button,
Uh-huh.
and then screen, entire screen.
Um, I mean, green screen is selected and I'll hit share. Is that any better?
Perfect. Now let's just make that window bigger. Mhm.
Are we okay now? Okay.
Okay, that's a little bit better now.
Okay, you're gonna take care of this from this point forward?
Yes, I'm just
Okay.
making it a little bit bigger.
Okay,
Just
And
let me
how
know
do-
when you want to change the photo.
okay, I'll give you a heads up when we want to change the photo. It's pretty much in line, so as we go down, we'll be fine. Okay. You want me to continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, so originally in Liberia, everybody flocked over here to this white spot, only 40 to 60 degree or inches of rain per year, very dry. And they literally had droughts and they had rolling, I think they still have them in California now, the rolling blackouts of water. You can't use your water, you can't flush your toilets. So this is what the herd mentality did. It just got everybody into this area that was totally unprepared for it. And it was crazy expensive. So if you'll see this map, you'll see how varied that the weather patterns are in Costa Rica. So we're over here on the right side in Siquirres, and you'll see that little area there that we get about 80 to 120 inches or so of rain. Then it's a normal weather pattern. Once we cross over the mountains onto the Caribbean plain, we have more or less what I call a normal weather pattern. It rains and sun and mixes in, and basically July and December can be the rainier months. So it's very pleasant. You don't have droughts. You don't have 6 months of heat, and it's really pleasant. But a lot of people just don't know that. To this day, and I feel bad for the hotels and everything that's on the Caribbean side, because people are doing what they think is good homework. And they say, oh, well, it's the green season, it's the dry season. On the Caribbean, not so. The best months are September and October. Just the bluest skies, the oceans are flat and blue. It's gorgeous. But if you go on most the information you get on the internet, you say, oh, well, it's still the rainy season, I'm not going to go. So that's why it pays to do your homework, because there's so much stuff you don't know that will affect life, on a daily basis, because we have very pleasant weather patterns. It makes life nice that everything's green all year. It makes it nice that we don't run out of water to flush our toilets. And the crowd is not aware of that yet. They're still flocking to the Pacific side, where the pricing and weather and everything else is just not optimum for an everyday lifestyle. So the next map I think is really neat. If you want to click to that one, is I'll give you a chance. There we go. If you'll notice the hurricane history, you zoom in on that, you'll see Costa Rica down there at the bottom. There's no hurricanes past there. Anything that's below 10 degrees of the equator basically doesn't get hurricanes. So that's an important factor. A lot of people move from Florida and different places and they're worried about hurricanes. It's something that you don't have to worry about. And that's one of the things with Nicaragua, they get hammered. And we've only got hit by one hurricane. That was a couple of years ago, just touched the northern part of the country. So that's not something we have to worry about. And let's go to the next slide, please. This is what our beaches look like all year round. On the Pacific side, I'm a real bullheaded kind of guy, as most guys probably are. So we're on the beaches over in the Pacific my first year there, and it's around noon, and my wife tells me, well, you can't go on the beach with your bare feet. I said, what are you talking about? I can't go on the beach. it was so hot. It was like walking, walking on hot coals. That's what the Pacific beaches are like during that high season. So ours, the trees go right down to the ocean all the time, grow right up there. You can bring your family. You've got shade. It's not 150 degrees out there, and you can actually swim all day and walk on the beaches, at noontime. And I think that's a big part of life for people who move to Costa Rica. They love the beach. So to me, it makes more sense to be at beaches that are usable all year round. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. Now, this is I'm not going to give any names of other projects that I'm aware of, but I spy on them. I go all over the country and I see what's happening. And one thing I want to point out with this picture is they do have nice views from this particular lot of the ocean. It's hard to get, but you see how close the homes are. These are $1 million homes, and you can literally leap from your porch to your neighbor's porch. And I just, that's never been attractive to me. I know people don't mind sometimes, but I didn't move from the United States to Costa Rica to be on this tiny lot and, be listening to my neighbor's conversation on his porch. So that's one of the things I noticed is that people flock. This is on the Pacific side. The land prices are at least 3 to 4 times as much. And if you folks are doing your homework, you'll see that land itself is usually priced per square meter. That's about 1 square meter is about 10 square feet. So on the Pacific side, from what I'm seeing at these projects, is the land is about $45 to $65 per square meter. Where I'm at on the Caribbean side, in our project, actually, it's anywhere between 12 and 15 a square meter. And we have minimum 1.25 acres. So you're never going to have this situation here where you buy this 1/4 acre lot and you're sharing it with your neighbor, basically. So the housing as well, people go over this particular outfit here. I mean, they're very successful. They're actually Israelis, and they have a bunch. I know the guys. I've been there. I know the salesmen, and I go scuba diving over there all the time with a friend of mine. And they're very successful. They do great marketing, and they get a lot of folks from Europe. And they poured in, I think it was well over $10 million to begin with. So they got to recover that money, right? So their land is 3 to 4 times as much, and the housing itself is $250 a square feet, more or less. We're building right now, and that's actually less than when we started 10 years ago, believe that or not. And it's $60 a square foot as opposed to 250. So between the land and the homes, here you're talking minimum $3 to $5, $6, $700,000 for a small house. Meanwhile, in our place, you can build a home on 1.5 acres, a small 2-bedroom for about $125,000. And that's just so affordable to most people, especially a lot of folks from Canada love Costa Rica. And folks from Toronto come down, and I mean, they can't even buy a tiny ranch home in Toronto for $1 million. So to have a 1.5 acres with a home on it in a gated community for 125 blows people away. That's what I'm talking about, following the herd, because you have to go out of your way a little bit. We don't have $10 million. We haven't saturated, the internet with fancy ads and everything else drawing you in. We're still pretty low key. So that's why it takes a little bit of work. And listen, a doctor friend of mine, he was getting a little bit older. His goal is to move in with the Indians. We have Indians that live on the mountain behind us. And he's been taking care of them for years. That's his goal, is to live in the jungle with the Indians. So I get it. It's really up to an individual what they want. So do your homework. Don't just jump onto the first place and think that's the story everywhere in Costa Rica, because there's vast differences. Okay. Next slide, please. this is the type of home we're building. This actually was built for about $75 a square foot. And everything in it is custom. I mean, all the windows, all the cabinetry, the furniture, everything was built by hand. And, this is so different from what I see everywhere else in the country. In the Central Valley, just to give you, another option beside the Pacific, land is going for about $100 a square meter. So I don't know how anybody, especially Costa Ricans, are affording new land and homes. It just blows my mind. So next slide, please. This is another home at Grandview. This is more homey, more custom. You can see the teak deck, all natural woods. A lot of this came from the surrounding property itself. This was actually made into a kind of an Airbnb spa. And this is a sort of building you can still get. This is a little more expensive because of all the wood, but it's, $75, $85 a square foot, all custom made. And so that's one of the differences you're going to find on the Caribbean side of the country. All right, next slide, please. If anybody would like my book, I will gladly send you an e-copy. That's not a problem. Just contact me after the show. Let me look at my notes here. Yeah, another friend of mine has a project on the Pacific side. And one of the interesting things I found was one of our owners had purchased 2 lots from me because they went over there and he says, I saw a 1/4 acre lot and it was more than 2 of your 1.5 acre lots. And that's just the sort of stuff that you're going to find if you're doing your homework. And I describe a lot of that in this book. This was my experience. This is not like a timeshare sales book, because I wandered into Costa Rica just as the most average guy in the world. And I hooked up with a beautiful Costa Rican lady that I've been married to almost 20 years now. And I love her. I love her family, just like mine. And I think the most important advice that I can give you is don't just think that you have to move in with the Americans. Why are we leaving the United States, right? We want something different. And one of the most valuable, one of the most beautiful things in Costa Rica are the people. Their culture, their kindness, and everything else is really, really life-changing. And when I'm spending time with their family, it's just so fulfilling. And don't think that you have to move into a gringo haven. Don't be afraid to learn Spanish. A dummy like me can learn it. Anybody can learn it. Now, my Spanish is not good. I don't have a skill for languages, but I have a lot of fun with it because people laugh at me a lot when I'm trying to speak. But that's also the fun part. I was just there last week. Travel's been a little bit restricted. I was there last week, and I have to say that this thing that's going on now with all the masks and everything, one thing I missed is as soon as you go into the airport in Costa Rica, the first people you see are at immigration, right? And you're giving them your passport and everything. They were always so smiley and so nice. They got beautiful faces, they got beautiful teeth, and they're friendly to you. Miss all that. So I can't wait till this thing is over, because the people are probably the most valuable commodity down there. So I know we're getting towards the end here. Half an hour is just barely touching anything. I'd be glad to talk to you at any time and fill you in. And like I said, I'm not just interested in promoting my project. I understand that there's a lot of people that would love to live on that remote mountaintop. I can guide you to some really nice places that you can do that at a reasonable price. And feel free to contact me with any questions, anything that I can fill you in on the real Costa Rica. Okay. And I think we'll take the last few minutes here, if you don't mind. And if there's any questions, great, ask me now. If not, we can always contact each other via email. Is that okay, Michael?
That is great. We actually have a question that came in.
Okay.
Actually, first, could you let folks know what your email address is?
Yeah. Oh, I have if you continue there, I think I have that. That way it'll pop up. I think there's some more stuff in that folder.
1 second. Let me pull up the share screen again.
It's easy anyway. It's info@gilphelan.com is my email.
Okay, what we'll do is also just send that out to folks.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah, and I have the tour, Michael. We do personal tours, and that's another thing over the years that I've tried everything. We've had up to 70 people out there in bus loads, a caravan. That doesn't work at all. I'm nothing but herding cats all day. I don't have any personal time. So what I've decided over these years, and there's a cost to it, but we reimburse you if you invest. I spend a 3-day weekend with you personally. We go all over Grandview. We go all over the Caribbean side into our local towns. I find the most important part of our trips there is to get a feel for the place, because most people, I mean, I've been doing this quite a few years. It doesn't take much to understand if this is doable or not. Some people right away, they feel off put with the language thing, the different country, it's so different. They're afraid. So, right. And a lot of other people, they go, oh, this is the best thing I've ever seen. Count me in. So that's my goal for our personal time, is to answer all your questions. I call it a seminar tour because it's my wife and I usually, we answer all your questions because we've been doing this a long time, and my wife's, Costa Rican. So it's a really valuable tour, and I like to offer that as well.
We have another question here. Could you describe a little bit Costa Rica's approach to the pandemic in terms of lockdown and safety overall?
Well, I mean, the safety part, I mean, that's debatable, right? I don't know much about that, but I can tell you that they're aboard 100% because they're a very, very compliant culture. And when the government tells them something to do, they're not as independent as us arrogant gringos. So, yeah, they're all masked up and ready to go. And I guess we could discuss that for hours and hours, but whichever way you look at it, may be good, maybe bad. I don't know.
Another question here is, how is the weather currently where you live?
What's the currently at the weather like currently on the Caribbean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's gorgeous. We typically have the same weather all year round. It can be 82, 85 degrees maybe during the day. At night, it gets down into the 70s, maybe 75, 78. And as I mentioned, that we have rain mixed in. It's kind of a normal weather pattern, like a lot of parts of the States where, rain shower comes in and it leaves. And so it's a quite normal weather pattern, as opposed to the 6 months wet and 6 month dry that the whole rest of the country has.
Okay, Gil. What we'll do is we'll send you the balance of the questions. We're going to
Okay.
wrap up now.
Okay.
Michael?
Yes, I'm here. We would like to thank you very much for all this information. I am right, your neighbor, talking to you from Managua. The picture behind me, it's just a virtual picture. It is a little bit overcast now, and yesterday it was raining a little bit.
Mhm.
And in Nicaragua, it's like 6 month dry, 6 month wet. Very informative introduction of your area, and thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
Bye-bye.